Hello, friends. So here I am again, back on YouTube. Got a few things to say. What I want to talk about is Peter Boghossian, that flaming ass uh, who just resigned. Anyway, what happened is this morning, Kristi Winters did a nice little video about it, and she praised me highly. So you should go watch that. Yeah, I'll go put a link down below, and you should look it up sometime. She talked about a number of issues with Boghossian's complaints. In particular, she's focused on, is he really that qualified as a philosopher to warrant giving him tenure, all that kind of thing. But I want to take a slightly different approach. I want to talk about something a little different because some of the things he says just really annoy me. They just are not appropriate. Okay, so let me switch things up a little bit here. Here's the man we're talking about. So this is Peter Boghossian. He was formerly a professor at Portland State University. He was a controversial professor who got into lots of hot water over various things, mainly because of his association with the right wing, which he denied. But let's not worry about the politics of it right now. Let's talk about some of the things he said. So what bugged me? Well, there's this. So Peter Boghossian resigned, probably because he saw the writing on the wall and it was going to be coming down to his final tenure decision, and it did not look good. It did not look positive. So he preemptively quit. Fine. However, afterwards, he wrote this on Twitter that I've been deluged with a request to appear on conservative, I think he meant conservative media, regarding my resignation from PSU. And yet I don't consider myself a conservative. Peter, you are very much a conservative. Get over yourself. Anyway, he says, I've received zero requests for interviews with liberal media, and I enjoy having a conversation with you. And he's aiming this at Rachel Maddow, NPR, and MSNBC. MSNB is not particularly liberal, but okay. Um, this is just infuriating because I'm sorry, a professor being denied tenure is not newsworthy. It happens all the time. I know there's this impression out there that once you're a professor, you're on easy street and just cruise on down to a lifetime appointment, but it's not the case. Sometimes it can be very difficult, and sometimes seemingly sort of arbitrary. But at the same time, there's also really good reasons why people might be denied tenure. So, true confession, I was denied tenure in about 1999. I was at Temple University, working my butt off there, and came up for tenure and didn't clear the hurdle. Do I feel bad about that? I was disappointed at the time, maybe a little bit shocked, but I saw it coming. Uh, Here's the deal. So it wasn't because I was offensively conservative, obviously, or because I was saying terrible things on the internet. That wasn't a big thing in 1999. What it was that at my job at Temple University, I had been burrowing down into a different sort of niche. At that time, I was in a biology department, but I was doing a lot of work on image processing and laboratory automation and writing software and all this other kind of stuff. So I was kind of an oddball in the department. And when it came time for the tenure review, a majority of the faculty just didn't feel like I was a good fit for that particular department, which is perfectly fine. Well, sort of. Uh, when people say you're not a good fit, that's often a problem with implicit bias. But that can't be Peter Boghossian's problem because he denies the existence of any kind of bias and of that sort in academia. So yeah, it's often used as an excuse to get rid of people who don't quite fit the mold of the department, and sometimes it's one of the reasons why departments tend to be very, very white in America. But in this case, no, it was just, hey, this Myers dude, he's weird. He doesn't really fit into the research program of our university. And there was also this thing where there was a major revamp of the College of Arts and Sciences at the same. It was chaos. But anyway, they said I don't fit in, and that was fine. I didn't panic. Well, little panic because you invest. I invested 7 years there, and then they tell me to move on. But here's the thing: I didn't get on the news. Neither the liberal media nor the conservative media were coming after me for interviews about this terrible injustice done to me. Fox News, not a single call. What was going on there? Well, again, this is mundane. If you are a college professor, you're on the tenure track. You're only put on the tenure track if there's high hopes that you will succeed. But sometimes you don't. You just don't. You just don't gel with the department. And really, a tenure decision is a decision about whether they want to keep this person in their department, working cheek by jowl with them for the rest of their life. So yeah, and in this case, Peter Boghossian, clearly he's not the kind of guy that a majority of the professors want to work with. Again, I'll mention that whole problem of implicit bias. It is a mechanism that could exclude people with different political and ideological viewpoints, and we worry about that. However, I can say with confidence that in every tenure decision I've been involved in, including my own that failed years ago, it wasn't because of politics. Politics is pretty explicitly kept off the table. We just don't want to deal with the headaches that would bring on. So yeah, that's not the issue here. So it's very silly for Boghossian to be raving about the weird bias that's there. It's because he was a jerk, and nobody wants to work with a jerk. He'd also brought all kinds of negative attention to the university. So yeah, this is a normal routine decision, not shocking at all. In my career, the majority of the tenure decisions that have come up have been decided in favor of the applicant. So the professor goes on to full tenure. But there have been a minority. Some of them have been very difficult because the guy or the girl just doesn't quite come up to our standards, and we say, no, sorry, we really like you and we like you to wish you all the success in the world, but no, you're not material here. So that happens. There have been a minority, a very tiny minority of cases where we've decided that, hey, this person is just awful. We don't want him here. They're not doing the work. I could name names, but no, I'm not going to because they're all gone. They've all moved on, and it's a little bit of an upheaval, and I'm not going to make it even worse for them. Okay, so that's one thing that I found really objectionable, that he thinks his tenure failure is newsworthy, and it's not. Move on, Peter. Go find a new job. That's what you've got to do. Okay, here's the other thing. Here's part of his resignation letter, and I did not like this at all. So there's things here that just no, that it tells me that this guy's a bad teacher. So he writes, over the last decade, it has been my privilege to teach at the university. My specialties are critical thinking, right? Ethics, right? And the Socratic method. We're going to have problems there. I teach classes like science and pseudoscience and the philosophy of education. But in addition, now, okay, let me just have an aside here that a lot of what he promotes is pseudoscience. So I don't think he has a firm grasp of the boundary between science and pseudoscience. That's one thing. The other thing is what he's about to say is really bad pedagogy. Okay, so he says, but in addition to exploring classic philosophers and traditional texts, I've invited a wide range of guest lecturers to address my classes, from flat earthers to Christian apologists to global climate skeptics to Occupy Wall Street advocates. I am proud of my work. Does anybody see the problem here? Well, there's a couple. One is, first of all, it's kind of 3-to-1 here. He talks about flat earthers, Christian apologists, and global climate skeptics who do not belong in this kind of course at all. And then Occupy Wall Street advocates. It depends on the advocate. There's some I would flatly say are kind of batty, but some of them were quite sincere and well-meaning. It is a legitimate point of view to complain about Wall Street and capitalism. But he seems to think all four of these things all are way out there, really weird things to be discussing. They're not. At least one of them isn't. The other three are. Then he says, I invited those speakers not because I agreed with their worldviews, but primarily because I didn't. From those messy and difficult conversations, I've seen the best of what our students can achieve, questioning beliefs while respecting believers, staying even tempered in challenging circumstances, and even changing their minds. Oh, all right. Here's the problem. Flat earthers, Christian apologists, and global climate skeptics do not belong in the classroom. It is not the job of a professor to stage debates in the classroom, okay? That there is a body of established known facts. There's good theories and bad theories, and our job in the classroom is to introduce students to the fundamentals of their particular discipline, of the topic of the course. It is not to debate. Yeah, if you are teaching critical thinking, it is not a good approach to bring in somebody who does not practice critical thinking. Yeah, you've just announced that the purpose of your course is to teach critical thinking. So why are you wasting our time with these people, these dogmatic people who are promoting nonsense? Totally inappropriate. You can introduce a little bit of it. In my classes, for instance, we talk about creationism a bit. I have to, because they're going to confront this all the time. But it's always in the context of, here's the body of biological and geological and physical evidence that says that the Earth is old and that life on Earth has evolved. And then I point out, yeah, some people disagree with that. Here's why they are wrong. That's what you have to do. And you can't do that if you are bringing in a flat earther, for instance, and having them spout off their opinions. I have listened to flat earthers. There's lots of YouTube channels that talk about flat earth, and they're absolutely nuts. Their reasoning is bad. Their evidence is laughable. Why are you bringing them into the classroom and giving them a platform to speak from? So, if I had a fellow instructor who was coming up for tenure and they said they were bringing in creationists, for instance, to talk in the classroom, I would want to be there to review exactly what was being taught in those sections of the class. Yeah. And this is just a big red flag for me, what he's saying here. But now at the same time, when we look on Twitter, he has so many defenders. It's a madhouse on Twitter because there's all these people ranting and raving about how, it was unjust that you lost your tenure. And no, it's not. It's kind of routine. But this one just jumped out at me. So he says, sad that things have come to this. University used to be about debate and challenging, even if it was uncomfortable. No, This is not true. Universities have never been about debate. That's not the primary focus of the university. Like I said, the purpose of these universities is to teach you the fundamentals, to teach you the core knowledge you need to understand what's going on. Debates are totally inappropriate. I mean, there are cases where maybe debates are useful. A number of years ago, for instance, the sociobiology wars. There were people who were sincerely arguing about a fairly advanced position in biology, and you had informed advocates for both of these positions that they weren't doing anything like denying evolution. They were talking about modes of evolution and what's most important and things like that. That I could see, yeah, you might want to have a debate about that, but that's kind of an upper level thing. It's not necessary to teach in an undergraduate course. How can you have them debating, sociobiology unless they've read sociobiology? Read Edward Wilson's book. It's thick. It's not something you do lightly, unless you've read some of the papers, and a lot of the papers get very mathematical. So I could see the value of some of the high level proponents and in a forum having a discussion about this. Sometimes those discussions got kind of feisty and ferocious, but that's what you have to do. But not in the classroom. Nope. Classrooms aren't about debate. Seriously, consider if I had a class in introductory biology or evolutionary biology, and I announced, okay, today we're going to have a debate between the creationists and the evolutionists. What would the students learn from that? What would be the virtue of doing that in the classroom? There is none. There really isn't. You get a warped perspective from YouTube. Here we are on YouTube, right? You get a very distorted perspective because the people who are advocating for creationism are not worth listening to. No, really. They're not saying anything intelligent, intelligible, rational, or evidence-based. They are making an ideological point of contention, and they're misrepresenting all the evidence. So they are not worth talking to. I would not bring any of them into my classroom. Yeah, and there's going to be a bunch of pissed off creationists now. Good. Sorry, guys, but no, what you talk about is it's just madness. And I appreciate that people, and that included me in the past, would actually engage them on YouTube and tear into them and talk about why their ideas were bad. But the funny thing is, no matter how much you debate them, they don't go away. They're still there. That's the troubling thing. That we've still got people like, think of Aaron Ra, who's doing amazing work dismantling these arguments piece by piece. They're not going away. Making these arguments does not make them disappear. Similarly, if I were to teach a class on evolution, well, I have taught a class on evolution. Do I bring creationism into it? No, because there's nothing to talk about. So this kind of point of view is really common on the internet, on social media. The debate me bros. I can't stand them because that is not how you resolve the issues. What you've got is somebody who's firmly entrenched in a set of bad ideas, who's going to make an appearance and say stupid things, and there's going to be somebody else who's on the other side, the side of reason and evidence, who's just going to have to stand there dumbfounded while the idiocy rages around him or her, and eventually get a few words in to try and rebut them. No, it's entertainment, but it's not very informative. Yeah, Seriously, if any of you in the comments want to name somebody, a creationist, who's got legitimate, interesting arguments, go ahead and try. But I tell you, I've been through them all. I've heard all of them, and they're garbage. So no, don't waste my time with this. Okay, so that's Peter Boghossian. He's a guy who makes imaginary controversies in the classroom and on the internet and social media, who publishes, made up stories about controversies and thinks he's advancing the field. He's not. So it was legitimate that he was denied tenure. I'm glad he was. Of course, now let me think here. So now, of course, what we got to worry about is what comes next. Peter Boghossian is no longer able to trade on the prestige of Portland State University, on the professorate, on being an academic. He's going to have to do something else to make a living, isn't he? And this is what worries me. Where is he going next? I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's going to be interesting. Will he go to a think tank? Will he go to like the Heritage Institute or something? Will one of them want him? Will he try to go off on his own and set up a career like Jordan Peterson, just making podcasts and convincing people that he's worth listening to and making loads of money? It's sad. I think he's going to succeed as a right-wing grifter. No problem. That seems to be the easy path. People complain about how becoming a professor is just the easy road to prosperity and security and wealth and repute and all that kind of good stuff. And it's not. You get paid diddly as a professor. The real path to success, as if you're thinking money, is exactly the path that Peter Boghossian is launching himself on right now. So look forward to it. You're going to be hearing more from him, only now he's going to be getting more money from some billionaire who's funding idiots who endorse his points of view. Okay, that's all I wanted to get off my chest. I go listen to Kristi Winters talk too. She's got a good point of view on that. And I will talk to you all later.